Hey guys, welcome to the Sleepy Science. Tonight, something subtle begins to unfold. Not in the stars, not in your dreams, at least not yet, but in the rhythm of the evening itself. Outside, the sky leans into its darker shades. The trees no longer cast shadows, they become shadows. The world hushes, like it's holding its breath before a symphony you didn't know you were waiting for. Inside, your space feels different too, not louder, not quieter, just slower. Like time is no longer rushing past, but instead standing politely in the doorway, waiting to be noticed. You probably won't survive this, not because anything dangerous is coming, but because, let's be honest, sleep is already moving in like a tide around your thoughts. And if it claims you halfway through a sentence, well, I'll take that as a compliment. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You settle in, your body knows this ritual now. The soft surface beneath you, the faint hum of night around the edges of your room, the gentle pull inward. It's not about falling asleep, it's about letting go. The air is still, and in that stillness you start to notice something peculiar. Time is behaving differently, not broken, not frozen, just slower. The seconds between your breaths stretch like taffy. You blink, and it feels like minutes passed in the space between. It's not disorienting, it's not uncomfortable. If anything, it feels like being rocked, subtly, rhythmically, like gravity is holding you more gently than usual. Why is that? Why, when you're alone, especially at night, does time become so strange? You lie still, but your thoughts begin to wander. Like curious children slipping away from a classroom. They're not misbehaving, they're just drawn to something beyond the clock. Did you know, in deep meditation or certain sensory deprivation chambers, people report losing all sense of time, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet unraveling. 10 minutes becomes an hour becomes a blink. Sometimes it's hard to say whether you fell asleep or simply stepped outside the timeline. And isn't that what's starting to happen now? You're still in your room, but not entirely. You're drifting. The furniture softens at the edges. The shadows look rounder, softer. The digital numbers on your clock mean less and less. Time is no longer measured in seconds, but in sensations. Here's a curious truth. Your perception of time depends more on your attention than on any ticking hand. When your mind is stimulated, alert, connected to the world around it, time seems to fly. But in solitude, especially the kind filled with quiet and stillness, your attention turns inward. And inward is where time gets funny. Because what is a second, really? It's just a socially agreed upon pause. But in the quiet, with no conversations, no notifications, no eye contact, your brain doesn't have those usual markers to say, "Ah, yes, this is 5 minutes." Instead, you're left with breath, with thought, with the gentle flow of internal awareness. And that, my friend, is liquid time. Have you ever sat in silence so long the walls seem to breathe with you? Or walked through a quiet house and felt like the air was thicker, as if the minutes themselves had gained weight? Time without noise is like syrup. It stretches, it slows, it pools in the corners of your awareness. Some philosophers have argued that time doesn't truly exist, at least not as we understand it. That it's not a river flowing forward, but a sea, still and eternal, and we're just fish that think the currents mean something. It's an amusing thought, especially when your phone's dead and there's nothing left to do but sit and feel the present moment stretch out like a hallway with no end. You smile slightly as this realization wraps around you, that perhaps this strange slow time isn't a mistake. Maybe it's your brain taking its jacket off, loosening its tie, settling in for a deeper kind of awareness. In this space, everything softens. Even memory feels different. You try to recall what you did earlier today and it feels distant. Not far in space, just far in texture, like it happened in a different time signature. You're entering what some call subjective time, the experience of time as it feels, rather than as it measures. It's the reason childhood summers felt endless, and why adulthood weekends vanish in a blink. There's no one here to anchor you. No schedules, no small talk, no glances to synchronize with, just you and time. And something about that makes time bend, like the seconds themselves are shy around you, or perhaps playful, Or maybe they're just tired too. You shift slightly and the sound of your blanket feels louder than it should. That's part of it too, your sensory input changes in solitude. Things get louder, slower, more intimate. It's why monks live in silence, why writers go to cabins, why a person alone in their room can feel the whisper of a clock even when it's digital. Your perception, like a camera lens, narrows in, and as it does, the world expands. You wonder, what is the smallest unit of time you can feel? A heartbeat? A blink? A thought? Do you only notice time when it stutters? Like when you check the clock twice and it hasn't moved? That phenomenon actually has a name, the chronostasis illusion. When you shift your gaze, your brain fills in the gap between movements, making the second seem to freeze. Time, it seems, is not just flowing. It's being edited in real time by your mind. You blink slowly, the room sighs, and you realize you're already halfway out of the day, not just tired, transformed. Time is no longer a measure, it's a companion, a shapeshifter, a quiet, slow-dancing ghost beside your bed. And you're listening, not with your ears, but with your presence. The world hasn't stopped, but it's agreed, just for tonight, to move at your pace. You start to notice that the longer you're alone, the less the hours seem to follow their usual path. They twist softly, stretch like thread pulled between your fingers. There's no urgency here, no pressure from the outside world to keep pace. Just you. And whatever this moment decides to become, time, it seems, is a shapeshifter in solitude. You shift your position, and the sound of your body against the sheets feels louder than it should. The room hasn't gotten louder, you've just gotten quieter, and in that quiet, time finds room to breathe. It no longer ticks forward like a metronome. It pulls, it shivers, it sighs, and you can feel it. This sensation isn't new to you. You felt it before, maybe on a long, empty afternoon when the plans fell through, or in the early hours of morning before anyone else woke up. That strange feeling that time isn't just passing, it's watching, waiting. Some psychologists call this temporal distortion. Your brain's sense of time is deeply tied to your attention, your emotional state, even your posture. Sit still for long enough with no distraction, and your inner clock starts to wobble like a candle flame in still air. Here's a strange thought. Time is the only thing you move through that also moves through you. It flows with your breath, it flows with your pulse. But when you're alone, and especially when you're still, it begins to echo. And the echoes make it feel like more. You stare into the dark ceiling and a memory flickers. Maybe it's from childhood, sitting alone in a car while your parent ran into a store. Minutes felt eternal. You probably counted something, cars, raindrops, seconds. You were alone, even briefly, and time, noticing, slowed itself just for you. There's a quirk of the human brain known as the internal pacemaker theory. It suggests that you have an internal clock governed by neural pulses, and those pulses speed up or slow down based on stimuli. More stimulation, more noise, more movement, and your internal clock quickens. But in silence, in solitude, it decelerates. You're not just feeling time differently, you're producing it differently. It's like you become your own metronome. And right now, it's set to lullaby. Did you know early astronauts in space often reported extreme time distortion? With no sunrise or sunset, no meals at regular hours, and no casual conversations, their minds had to invent time on their own. Some reported feeling like hours had passed when it had only been minutes. Others lost track of entire days. Alone, it seems, time stops being universal. It becomes personal. You shift again. Not out of discomfort, but out of curiosity. How long have you been lying here? 5 minutes? 20? And does it matter? You don't need a clock to tell you where you are. You're here. This moment expands like ink in water. It holds everything. Your breath, your thoughts, your heartbeat, slow and even. You listen to it, thump, thump, and wonder, how many beats make a moment? And who decided? There's a reason sensory deprivation tanks distort time so deeply. Without external cues, sound, sight, temperature, your brain's internal timekeeping begins to fray. You float in warm, silent water. Your body disappears from your awareness, and minutes either vanish or multiply into eternities. That's the closest description to what you feel now. You're not in a tank, but the quiet is thick, the solitude is complete, and time is rearranging itself in your favor. You catch yourself thinking about people who've spent long periods truly alone. Arctic researchers, deep-sea divers, monks in mountain temples. They all describe time in unusual ways, like it became a companion or an enemy or a god, sometimes all three. And you wonder, what does your time feel like when no one else is around to share it? Maybe this is where your self begins to stretch too. Without feedback from the world, without mirrors, glances, interruptions, you start to see yourself from the inside, not as a role, not as a task, but as a presence. And that presence doesn't move at the speed of emails or traffic lights. It moves at the speed of being. Funny, isn't it? That the loneliest moments often reveal the most connected truths. You're not really alone after all. You're with your breath, you're with your heartbeat. You're with every version of yourself that ever waited for something and every version that decided to simply be. Another fact bubbles up gently. Research has shown that when people are bored, they often perceive time as moving slower in the moment, but faster in retrospect. It's like your brain collapses all the quiet moments into a single thin memory. That's why years of routine can vanish in memory, while a single strange moment, like now, lasts forever. You're in one of those strange moments now, and here's something lovely. You get to decide what to do with it. There's no schedule, no timer ticking toward the next obligation, no one checking in. This moment is entirely yours, a luxury. A soft pause in the great machine of urgency. You let your breath deepen, let your hands unclench, let your eyes unfocus. And you begin to notice the details, the way the shadows on the ceiling move ever so slightly as the fan turns. The subtle warmth of your own skin against the cool of the air, the way silence has layers, background hums, the creak of the house, the soft whisper of your own muscles adjusting. Each one a timestamp, each one a presence. You wonder briefly, if time moves more slowly when you're alone, then maybe solitude is a form of time travel. A gentle, invisible way of stepping outside the rush of things. It's a lovely thought. You lie still, and the stillness lies with you. The moment expands just a little more, and somewhere in the distance, or maybe deep inside you, a clock forgets how to tick. There's something almost sacred about this softness, this unmeasured pause between moments where nothing is required of you. No replies, no expectations, just space, just presence. Time continues to unfold, but not in a straight line anymore. It curves, folds, opens like a paper lantern, drifting in slow motion. You begin to suspect that alone time isn't just about being without others. It's about remembering the version of you that exists beneath all your roles. And when you do, time responds like a tuning fork. It shifts. Did you know that in altered states, hypnosis, deep meditation, even daydreaming, the brain's default mode network becomes more active? That's the region linked to self-reflection, memory, and imagination. And when it lights up, time does strange things. That's what you're feeling now. You're not doing nothing. You're orbiting your own mind, and it's beautiful. A thought returns, one you've maybe had before but ignored. What if time is less like a ticking clock and more like a rubber band? It stretches when you wait. It snaps tight when you're busy, and when you're alone, truly alone, it's neither stretched nor taut. It just hovers. You turn your attention inward, like adjusting a lens. And suddenly the landscape of your thoughts opens up like a field at dusk. Soft hills, gentle shadows, long grasses that rustle even without wind. This is your inner terrain, the one you rarely get to walk without interruption. You wander through it now, and as you do, memories drift in, slow and unannounced. Not the loud ones, not the bright, dramatic headline moments, but the soft ones, the ones that didn't seem important at the time. The way sunlight hit your bed sheets that one quiet Saturday. The sound of rain while you ate cereal alone as a kid. The look your reflection gave you once when you didn't expect to like what you saw. These memories have no timestamps, but they belong to you, and in their arrival, time folds in on itself again. It's said that memory is not like playing back a tape, but more like reliving a dream. Each time you remember something, you recreate it. That means even your past is shaped by your present state. So when you're alone and calm, your memories soften too. They arrive with rounded edges. Time, it turns out, is not just felt, it's felt through. And here's the curious bit. Scientists still debate what time actually is. Some say it's an illusion, just entropy being perceived. Others suggest it's a fourth dimension, curled tightly around the others. And there are physicists who think it might not exist at all. that everything happens at once and we just experience it sequentially. You blink slowly. The idea makes sense here, in this softness, where you can't tell whether it's midnight or morning, where seconds feel like sighs and thoughts drift in and out like lazy clouds. You shift again, not because you need to, but because your body likes reminding you that it's still here, still real. And as you do, you catch a glimpse of your own silhouette, barely a shape in the dim light. For a moment you don't recognize it. And strangely, that's okay. You're not trying to be anyone right now, you're just being. And in that, time slows again. Did you know there's a phenomenon called time dilation, proven by Einstein, where time literally slows down the faster you move, or the deeper you are in gravity? Astronauts experience it minutely when orbiting Earth. GPS satellites have to account for it in their software, but your brain does something similar too. In high adrenaline moments, accidents, emergencies, time seems to slow. That's not because the world is slowing, but because your brain is processing more detail faster. It's hyper-aware. But this is the opposite. You're not in danger, you're safe, and so your brain allows the details to stretch out like a lazy cat in the sun. Your thoughts no longer rush to conclusions, they meander, they linger, they bloom. You notice the air again, how it tastes tonight. Cooler, slightly metallic. The kind of air that makes you feel like something is just about to begin, even though nothing is scheduled. You let your hand rest on your chest. You feel your own breath move under it. And suddenly that one breath is enormous. Not because it's deep, but because it's meaningful. You're alive, right now, in the moment. And the moment is so still it feels like a photograph. You begin to wonder, maybe being alone is what lets you reintroduce yourself to time as it truly is. Not a measurement, but a mood, a texture, a relationship, a language you forgot you knew. You think of those old wind-up watches where the tick-tick was gentle and grounding. How we used to listen to time as much as read it. And how quiet things were before the world started vibrating in your pocket every few minutes. You smile, a small one. It's good to be unreachable sometimes. It's good to be with time instead of against it. You think again of the phrase killing time, and how strange it is. Why kill something that walks beside you? Why not listen to it? Let it speak. Let it rest with you. Here now, time is not your enemy. It's your lullaby. And as your eyes soften and your breath evens out, you wonder if maybe, just maybe, this is the way time was always meant to feel. Unrushed, unmeasured, intimate. You're not sure how long it's been now. Minutes? Hours? Maybe it's still the same moment, just stretched into different shapes. The quiet has become a kind of language, and you're starting to understand its grammar. Pauses as punctuation, breath as emphasis, stillness as dialogue. The world outside your room might still be rushing, cars honking, phones buzzing, clocks ticking their polite reminders. But here, in your solitude, time has curled into a spiral. You're not moving through it. You're sitting in the middle of it, watching it turn like a galaxy around you. There's something ancient about this feeling. Like humans weren't meant to keep track of time in numbers and notifications. Maybe our original timekeepers were trees, shadows, heartbeats. You close your eyes and imagine it. Early people sitting by a fire marking time by the crackle of the wood, the changing stars overhead, the way a story unfolded one breath at a time. They didn't measure the moment, they inhabited it. That's what you're doing now, and in that stillness, you begin to notice things not just in your surroundings, but in you. A low hum behind your ears, the kind that might just be silence tuning itself into song. A warmth in your spine that pulses with the rhythm of your breath. A memory, or maybe just a sensation that something vast is watching. Not in a threatening way, in the way the moon watches the ocean. Patient, curious. Did you know that your body has more than one biological clock? Besides your circadian rhythm, there are ultradian rhythms, shorter cycles that govern attention and energy, infradian rhythms, longer cycles like those tied to the lunar month, and even circaseptan rhythms, a weekly cycle of mood and immune function scientists still don't fully understand. Your body is a cathedral of clocks, and here in solitude, without the noise of expectation, they all begin to harmonize. This is why monks and mystics spend so much time in silence, not because they're avoiding the world, but because they're syncing with something deeper. When you remove the scaffolding of urgency, something truer begins to ring through you. You feel that now, not as an idea, but as a vibration, as if your bones remember a music your mind forgot. You smile again. Have you noticed how smiles feel different when no one's watching? There's a softness to it, a freedom. You're not performing, you're just responding to a thought, a warmth, a joke only you heard. Time has a sense of humour too, like when you think something happened just yesterday and realise it was 5 years ago, or when you're waiting for toast and swear an hour has passed. There's a phenomenon called chronostasis, where your brain literally freezes time for a moment when you shift your gaze. That's why the second hand on a clock sometimes seems to pause. Your mind is stitching reality back together. So yes, time plays tricks, and maybe being alone just makes you more aware of them. Another memory drifts in. This one less vivid, more like a scent than a picture. Maybe it was a walk you took alone once, where you forgot your phone and felt awkward at first, then calm, then free. Or a moment at a party when you slipped outside for air and found yourself staring at the sky, feeling more real in the solitude than you had in the crowd. There's a concept in psychology called the restorative power of solitude. It suggests that when we are alone, not lonely but alone, we regain access to parts of ourselves that get drowned out by daily life. We think more deeply, feel more clearly, and time responds. You let that sink in, and in doing so you become aware of your breath again. You inhale, and the air feels like it's travelled far to get to you. As if it has its own history, clouds it's passed through, songs it's carried, secrets it's overheard. And now it's here, filling you gently, asking for nothing, offering everything. The exhale is even softer, and with it another layer of time peels away. There's a myth that in ancient Japan, poets could write haiku so still, so precise, that time itself would slow around them while they wrote. You wonder if that's true, or maybe if that's just what a truly present moment feels like, a suspension in the flow. You glance at a corner of your room where light is pooling in a way it didn't before. It's not brighter, it's richer, as if even the photons have decided to take their time tonight. It's hard to say what time it is, but it doesn't feel late, or early, or anything. It just feels now, and now is a gift you didn't know you'd been craving. You think of a line you once read, something about how eternity isn't endless time, it's no time at all. And for the first time it makes sense. This moment isn't stretched, it's infinite in its stillness. You feel a part of yourself relax that you didn't even know was tense. The part that's always keeping score, checking boxes, chasing deadlines, it lets go. Because here in this gentle room of your own attention, there is no behind, there is no ahead, there is only this breath, this beat, this being, and you belong to it, not as a prisoner of time, but as its companion. Outside your window, the sky hasn't changed, but you have. The stars look the same, but now you're seeing them with eyes unclouded by hurry. Each one is more than a light. It's a question, a clock older than humanity, a note in a silent song that's been playing since before calendars existed. And still, time here feels like a warm bath. You aren't rushing to get out. You aren't even thinking about the next moment. This moment is wide enough. Strange, isn't it, sir? How we spend so much of our lives wishing time would speed up, waiting for Fridays, for vacations, for someone to text back. And yet, when it finally slows down, when it gives us space, we don't always know what to do with it. You're learning, you're remembering. There's a curious scientific observation. People who meditate regularly often report a slowed perception of time. But it's not boredom, it's expansion. Their brains enter altered states where external measurements seem irrelevant. Their sense of self begins to dissolve. They become, in some sense, timeless. That's where you are now. Not floating through time, but letting it float through you. Each breath is an hour, each blink a daydream. There's a German word, Zwischenzeit. It means between time, the space between events, between thoughts, between intentions. That's where you are, a tender pause in the tempo of your own life. You lie still, not asleep, but not fully awake either. And in that in-between place, something opens. You begin to notice that your thoughts aren't just quieter, they're kinder. The voice in your head that normally nags and edits and evaluates has taken a nap. In its place is something gentler, something that says, you're okay. Not because you did anything, not because you accomplished anything, but just because you're here. It's such a rare kindness, and it came from you. Did you know astronauts aboard the International Space Station often report a phenomenon called the overview effect, a deep emotional shift when they see Earth from above? From space, borders disappear, conflicts shrink as time itself feels smaller, and many of them describe a sudden, overwhelming urge to protect this fragile world spinning silently in the dark. That's what solitude can do too. It's a kind of personal orbit, a moment where you float high enough to see your own life with new perspective. And from up here, even your regrets seem smaller, softer, forgivable. You start to realize that much of what felt urgent before wasn't. Much of what felt permanent isn't. There's room to breathe, room to feel, room to let go. A quiet laugh escapes you. Because sometimes the only thing standing between you and peace is a calendar notification. You think of clocks again, how relentless they seem in the daytime. But now, in the quiet, they're just background noise, just gentle ticks, like footsteps walking with you, not chasing you. There's a kind of courage in sitting with time instead of running from it. Because when you stop running, time shows you things. It shows you the crack in the ceiling you never noticed before, where shadow and light take turns. It shows you how your hands rest on your stomach when you breathe, and how good it feels to feel nothing urgent. It shows you that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Loneliness is an ache. Aloneness is a doorway, and tonight, you've walked through it. There's a story told by Buddhist monks that in long silent retreats, time becomes so stretched, so slow, that they can feel their own hair grow. Of course, they don't literally feel it, but the stillness is so complete, so intimate, that even invisible things become noticeable. That's the kind of presence you're touching now. You can feel the edges of your own thoughts before they form. You can sense which memories are about to return and gently guide them away if you're not ready. You are the host of your own mind, and for once, your mind is a guest worth keeping. Another breath, another ripple in the soft lake of your attention. You realize that time doesn't always move forward in solitude. Sometimes it moves inward. You've revisited childhood, a breakup, a strange dream you once had that still doesn't make sense. Not because you went looking, but because the silence invited them, and you welcomed them. You didn't judge, you didn't label, you just listened. That's what time becomes when you're alone, not a taskmaster but more a storyteller. And the story it tells isn't just about what happened. It's about who you are between the happenings, the moments that aren't on your resume, the pauses between plot points. You, just you. You think briefly about people who fear being alone. Maybe you were one of them once, maybe part of you still is. That's okay. But solitude, when met gently, isn't an absence, it's a mirror. One that shows you not just your reflection, but your rhythm, your tempo, your truth. And the truth here and now is this: you're safe, you're timeless, you're enough. Time continues to stretch, not like a tightrope, but like honey. Golden, slow and thick with meaning. You don't need to rush anymore, there's nowhere to go, nothing to prove, just the soft rhythm of your breath and the gentle echo of your thoughts brushing past each other in the quiet. It's in this stillness that you start to notice another phenomenon: how time seems to change shape depending on how you feel. When you're anxious, it races. When you're bored, it crawls. But here in this soft solitude, it settles. It breathes with you. Scientists call this time dilation, and while they often mean it in terms of physics, how time slows down near a black hole or when you move close to the speed of light, there's a psychological version too. When you're immersed in something like a dream or a forest or a deep moment of reflection, your sense of time becomes elastic, and right now, your seconds are made of velvet. Even your memories start to glide forward now, not in a straight line, but in a gentle spiral. You remember things from years ago as if they just happened, or maybe they're happening again. Time here doesn't seem to care much about order. A gentle thought appears, uninvited but welcome. Maybe your soul doesn't move through time. Maybe time moves through your soul. It would explain the way certain songs can collapse decades into a single heartbeat, or how the scent of a sweater can bring back a person you haven't spoken to in years, or why silence, true silence, can feel infinite. You breathe in, and for a moment, the silence becomes sacred. Have you ever noticed how clocks don't really tick in digital time? They blink softly, unnoticed. You think of how your phone quietly updates itself while you sleep, slipping into new days without ceremony. But you deserve a ceremony. Tonight, your mind gives you one. You imagine lighting candles for each memory that visits. You imagine the seconds not as fleeting moments, but as tiny constellations, each glowing softly with meaning you might not understand yet. But that's okay. Understanding isn't always the point. Sometimes feeling is enough. Another strange fact drifts to you. In the 1970s, scientists tested subjects in underground bunkers, cut off from all clocks and daylight. Left to their own rhythms, many people naturally began living on a slightly longer cycle, somewhere between 25 to 28 hours, like their internal time was a little more lunar. Maybe time as we know it isn't quite as natural as we think. Maybe your body knows a different clock, one with softer hands and fewer alarms, one where dreams take priority over deadlines, where emotions are allowed to arrive late and stay long, where healing isn't rushed. You shift slightly on your pillow. The air feels thicker now, not heavy but full, as if every molecule carries meaning. And somewhere deep in the stillness you feel it again, the sense that someone or something is listening. Maybe it's the universe, maybe it's your own attention finally turned inward. Whatever it is, it's kind. You feel seen, not by others, by yourself. And that kind of seeing takes time. No wonder it feels strange. No wonder it feels sacred. Another open debate flutters through your thoughts. Whether time is continuous or quantized, whether it flows like water or clicks forward like a film reel, physicists still aren't sure. And honestly, neither are you. But here's what you are sure of. This moment is whole. Whole. And you're inside it. And that's enough. The light in your room seems to soften, even if nothing's changed. Shadows curve more gently, corners round themselves. The silence deepens. You think about animals and their sense of time. How cats nap without shame, letting hours melt beneath them. How whales sing across oceans and calls that take minutes to reach each other. How sloths move so slowly that moss grows on their backs. Maybe they've figured it out, how to live in time instead of against it. There's a word for that feeling you're having now. The Japanese call it yugen. It means a deep awareness of the universe that triggers emotional responses too profound for words, like watching fog drift through a forest, or hearing a distant train on a rainy night. That's what this moment is. Yugen. Not dramatic, not flashy, just deeply, quietly infinite. You breathe again, you're not counting, but your breath seems to hold more, everything. You remember a line from somewhere, you do not need to be busy to be valuable. And your chest softens, because so often we equate time with productivity. But tonight you've discovered something else. Time can be presence, it can be attention, it can be this, and in this you are whole. Not because you finished your checklist, not because you solved anything, but because you stopped. And you listened. And in the space that opened, you found yourself. Not your resume, not your to-do list, just you, still, breathing and timeless. There's something different about your breath now. Not deeper exactly, just more true. Like your lungs finally remembered what they were built for. Air moves in and out not to keep you alive, but to keep you present. The room feels larger. Or maybe it's you that feels more spacious. There's no pressure to move, no need to get to the good part. You are the good part. The stillness continues, but now it starts to feel like a space you've been in before. Familiar. Maybe from childhood. Maybe from a dream. You can't quite name it, but it wraps around you like a forgotten sweater from an old season. Time here isn't a line. It's a room, a round echoing room, and you are sitting in the center. It brings to mind a story about the ancient Greeks. They had two words for time, chronos and kairos. Chronos is the time you measure, minutes, days, deadlines. Kairos is something else entirely. It's the time that opens when the moment is right. It's the perfect pause in a conversation, the instant just before a kiss, the hush before a revelation. You are deep in kairos now. This moment could last a second or a century, and you wouldn't mind either way. You notice how silence hums differently in solitude. Not empty, but resonant, like a cave or a cathedral. It makes you wonder, what if time is a room we build together with our thoughts? What if every fear, every joy, every longing adds another wall, another window? Tonight, your thoughts are made of softwood and slow echoes. You build nothing to protect yourself, only to hold yourself. A museum for a moment, a chapel for your breath. Here's something curious. When people are placed in sensory deprivation chambers, no sound, no light, no external cues, many report that time begins to lose all meaning. Some feel like only minutes have passed, when in fact hours have gone by. Others feel trapped in eternity. Your brain needs rhythm to track time, and when it's gone, it improvises. That's what you're doing now, improvising presence, and you're quite good at it. You smile at the thought, how rarely we give ourselves credit for being. You're not solving, not fixing, not rushing, you're just being, and that is enough. It brings you to another curious image, a candle burning in a quiet room. The flame doesn't rush, it doesn't worry, it simply is, dancing gently, casting light, existing. You're like that now, still but alive. Alive but quiet. Did you know deep-sea creatures that live in total darkness often develop their own bioluminescence, not to attract others, but to keep themselves company? Their own light becomes their map. Maybe that's what this moment is doing for you, your own light reflecting off the inside of time, and somehow you can see. Everything feels more allowed here. You don't need to answer emails, you don't need to explain yourself, you don't need to be interesting or clever or useful. You can just exist. That in itself is a kind of revolution. There's a debate among scientists and philosophers about whether time is real at all, or if it's just a construct, a way for our minds to make sense of change. Some theories say that every moment already exists simultaneously, and we're just flipping through them like pages in a book, only we can't skip ahead. Others say time might be more like a smell, something that arises only when certain things interact. It's wild to consider, but tonight you don't need answers, you just need to feel how strange and lovely it is to wonder. You think about how time speeds up when you're with people you love, how it vanishes when you're doing something joyful, how it stretches when you're waiting for something painful to pass. Time isn't always fair, but it is always honest, and in this honesty, in this still moment and nothing urgent and everything true, you realize time alone isn't lonely. It's honest time, unmasked, unfiltered, and you're okay with that. You might even love it. You think again of clocks, but not the kind that tick. You imagine a sundial, or the shifting shade of a tree, or the way your shadow lengthens toward evening. That's the kind of time you're in now. Time that doesn't interrupt you. Time that cradles you. You rest in it like a child curled on their parent's chest, hearing the heartbeat of something older and bigger than themselves. That's what this silence is, the heartbeat of presence. Another breath, another moment. Nothing to do, everything to feel. You wonder softly if this is what trees feel. Rooted, awake, timeless. They don't wear watches, but they know when to bloom. They don't mark hours, but they respond to the sun. Maybe this kind of time, this soft, winding, honest time, isn't just for humans seeking rest. Maybe it's the original time, the one we forgot, the one you're remembering now. You let your thoughts settle like dust in a beam of moonlight. No rush, no resistance, only rhythm. And the quiet awareness that you, yes, you, are allowed to take up space in this moment, not because you earned it, but because you're here, and that is enough. The air around you now feels like it's holding its breath, like time is crouching gently beside you, waiting for you to notice it, not as a taskmaster, but as a companion. There's a soft rhythm beneath your skin, a sort of low hum, like the gentle purr of the universe. You wonder if this is what clocks sound like from the inside, not ticking, but living. Your thoughts begin to loosen. They no longer arrive in sentences, just sensations, shapes, colours. You don't chase them anymore. You let them pass like fish beneath a dock. You think of a curious study. In solitary environments, especially in long expeditions, like in Antarctica or on the International Space Station, astronauts and scientists report that time begins to feel dreamlike, days blur, moments stretch or vanish. Some say it's like living inside a long exhale. That's what this is. You're floating inside a breath, and you start to realize the more alone you are, the more personal time becomes. Without others to calibrate to, your rhythms soften. Your days unfold not by schedule, but by mood, by moonlight, by memory. You think of ancient timekeeping before clocks, before calendars, the way people once marked time with shadows on stones, or the way the moon's phases were charted with notches on its bones. Even then, time was felt before it was measured. Maybe you're returning to that now, not to the Stone Age, but to the Soul Age, the part of you that knows how to live without counting. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. And in that dark, soft space, time becomes something else again. Not a thing to chase, not a thing to waste, just a tide, pulling in and out of you. It makes you think about the strange fact that the brain doesn't store memories like a filing cabinet. It rewrites them every time you recall them. Each remembering is a remix. So time, as you experience it, is constantly edited, coloured by mood, stretched by emotion. That's why a year can feel like a minute, and why a minute, in the wrong moment, can feel like a year. You feel time brushing up against your skin like a silk scarf. You are not trapped by it, you are touching it. You think of a quote, maybe Einstein, maybe not. Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with someone you love for an hour and it feels like a minute. That's relativity. It's a funny way of saying something quite profound. Time is not one thing, it's many. And you, in this quiet moment, are beginning to feel its layers. You remember how, as a child, summer felt endless. Weeks melted into afternoons. Afternoons stretched into golden hours. You didn't know how to tell time, but you knew how to feel it. And somewhere along the way, you forgot. But now, in this pocket of solitude, it returns. The slowness, the softness. Not boredom, just being. There's a concept in psychology called flow. It's the state where time falls away because you're fully immersed in something, writing, painting, dancing, solving a puzzle. But what if you don't need to do anything to enter that state? What if flow also happens in stillness? What if this is flow? You are no longer resisting the clock. You are dissolving into it. And in that surrender, something opens. Not a door, a horizon. You can see further now, not in distance, but in depth. There's a small, curious debate among philosophers. Is time a line, a loop, a spiral? Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's whatever shape your spirit needs at the moment. Tonight it's a spiral, gently unfolding around you, drawing you inward, then outward again. Not trapping, just inviting. You begin to think about language, how limited it is when trying to describe time. Long, short, fast, slow. They don't quite fit, do they? Because right now none of those words apply. This moment isn't long or short, it's full, it holds everything, and you are allowed to rest inside it. Here's a funny fact. The world's most precise clock, an optical lattice clock, loses only 1 second every 15 billion years. But even that miraculous invention can't tell you how time feels. Only you can do that. And right now it feels soft, quiet, holy. You think again of stars, how some of the starlight hitting your window tonight is older than humanity. It left its source before we even had language. So when you look up, you're seeing the past, in real time, which means that time is not always a direction. Sometimes it's a place, and sometimes it's a visitor, one you don't have to entertain, one you simply share silence with. You wonder if trees feel time differently, if they register decades as seasons and hours as breezes. You wonder if silence is their version of speech, and then you realize you're no longer wondering in questions, you're wondering in awe. Which is different? Which is slower? Which is enough? Time hasn't stopped for you, but it has knelt beside you, and in doing so it's become something kinder. The stillness continues, but now it's blooming, stretching outward like ink in water, like constellations drawn in reverse. You're not just inside the moment, you're woven into it. The longer you stay here, the more you notice. Time alone doesn't echo, hosoko, it absorbs. Your thoughts arrive, not to be shouted or solved, but simply heard. You're sitting in something most people avoid, unfilled space. But it isn't empty, it's vast, it's velvet. It reminds you of those moments when you're driving alone, no music playing, just the hum of tires and the rhythm of your own presence. How sometimes an entire emotion will rise like mist, uninvited but welcome. And now here you are, floating again, but this time not through space or sea or starlight. You're floating through yourself. You begin to see pieces of your life scatter like soft photographs across the dark. Not memories exactly, more like memory embers, a smile you once caught, a window you once stared through, a silence you once shared with someone who made the silence okay. They drift around you, not demanding anything, just glowing. Time in this shape becomes a kind of kindness. You remember hearing about chronostasis, a quirk in your brain where the very first moment you look at a clock after looking away seems to freeze in time, as if the second-hand pauses just for you. It's an illusion, of course, but illusions are just truths in disguise. And this one tells you time wants to be noticed, even when you're alone, especially then. There's a beautiful fact from neuroscience. When people imagine social connection, just think about a friend or a loved one. Their brains light up in similar ways as if that person were truly present. The mind doesn't always need bodies to feel bonded. Maybe that's why solitude isn't really the same as loneliness. Because in moments like this, you feel surrounded. By memory, by meaning, by molecules of past joys just close enough to touch. A laugh you shared 5 years ago still hangs in the air somewhere. A kind look you gave a stranger still lives in their mind. Those moments haven't vanished. They've only drifted into this deep pool of now, and you're allowed to swim in it. No lifeguards, no lanes, just drift. You think about the way time bends in grief and in love. How hours vanish when you're entangled with someone. How minutes stretch into aching eternities when you're waiting for a phone call that doesn't come. And how, strangely, time alone holds both states in its hands. The ache, the beauty, the waiting and the witnessing, all of it. Maybe that's the gift of being alone for a little while, the freedom to feel everything without performance. To cry without commentary, to laugh without explanation. To simply let time pass through you like a breeze through curtains. You remember reading that astronauts sometimes report seeing flashes of light behind their closed eyelids while sleeping in space, caused by cosmic rays hitting their retinas. The universe knocking, even in dreams, even in solitude. And maybe that's what's happening to you now, little flashes of memory, emotion, beauty, stirred by the silence. The strange thing is, you start to love it. Not in a dramatic way. In a soft candlelit, I could get used to this way. You love how you don't have to fill the air with words. You love how the clock keeps moving, even when you don't. You love how a moment can stretch and stretch until it fits everything you need to feel, and then gently return to its original shape. No damage done. You wonder if time has favourite people, favourite minds, favourite rooms to visit. Because this room feels blessed now, like it has been chosen for something delicate. Not a miracle. A remembering. The remembering that you are never really out of sync. You're just sometimes tuned to a frequency only silence can hear. And tonight you've found that station. You've tuned in. And what you're hearing isn't news. It isn't drama. It's something much older, much quieter, much more sacred. It's your own rhythm reintroducing itself. Saying, "Hi, remember me? We used to play together in the dark." And you do remember. You remember falling asleep as a child to the sound of your own heartbeat. You remember whispering secrets into the dark just to hear how brave they sounded. You remember how sometimes, when you were very quiet, time felt like a friend. It still does. Especially now, especially here, especially you. You're beginning to realize something subtle, something you've probably always known but never quite named. Time is not an enemy. It's not a thief or a weight or a countdown clock hiding in the shadows. It's a dance partner. And solitude, is the music. Right now, as you sit in this quiet cocoon of thought, breath, and memory, you're moving in sync with a tempo only you can hear. There's no one else to match steps with, no eyes to impress, no script to follow. You just move. Time stretches and folds like soft fabric around you. You pull it close. It doesn't resist. A curious concept comes to mind. Subjective time. Scientists use it to describe how time feels versus how it ticks. And when people are alone, truly alone, subjective time often expands. Minutes bloom, hours ripple, seconds slow down just enough to be noticed. It's not hallucination, it's attention. And attention is the birthplace of awe. You feel it now, that widening of inner space, that silence filled not with nothing but with wonder. It's like sitting at the centre of a cathedral made entirely of soft seconds and velvet hours. You think of monastics, those who voluntarily cloister themselves in silence, in slowness, not to escape the world, but to meet time on its terms, to greet each moment not as a hurdle but as a guest. And maybe, in your own way, you're doing that too. Maybe solitude isn't absence. Maybe it's invitation. You smile a little, because time is smiling back. Here's something strange. When people report near-death experiences, they often say time behaves differently. It slows down, or stretches, or sometimes vanishes altogether. It's as if in moments of deep aloneness, whether chosen or forced, time sheds its uniform and reveals its softer shape. You're not dying, of course, you're dreaming, but the dream is tender and full of secrets. You feel like you're floating between seconds now, not in front of time, not behind it, but inside it, wrapped, held, understood. It makes you remember something odd. There are parts of your brain, like the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that help regulate your circadian rhythms. They sync you to the rising and setting of the sun, like a built-in cosmic compass. But those rhythms change when you're alone too long, like an astronaut losing track of the days, like a deep-sea diver forgetting whether it's night or morning. Your internal clock becomes less about light and more about feeling, and so you start measuring time by dreams instead of alarms, by heartbeats instead of deadlines. And that might be the truest time of all. You picture time now like a field, not a racetrack, not a timeline, but a quiet, open field. You can run through it, lie in it, get lost in it, or simply sit and let it hold you. There's no right way to spend a moment, only the way that feels honest. You think about that phrase we use so often, spending time, like it's a currency, like it runs out. But here, in this solitude, it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like sharing time with yourself, with your breath, with the space between stars. You reach out, not physically but mentally, and feel a kind of touchback. Time touching you, not rushing you, just resting alongside you. Here's another curious thing. When you're alone, truly alone, you begin to notice the little ticks and trembles of your own biology. The heartbeat in your ear, the way your fingers pulse, the way thoughts echo a little longer in the halls of your mind. And in those details, you remember you're alive, not performing and not pretending, just being. And isn't that enough? You think it is. You think maybe it always was. You let out a soft sigh. Time sighs with you. You glance around your room, or the dream of your room, and everything feels bathed in a quiet glow, like moonlight poured through molasses. Even the shadows seem slower. They aren't hiding, they're waiting. And you're not trying to fill them, you're learning to sit beside them. It's not always easy, but it is always honest. You're beginning to understand solitude doesn't shrink you. It expands you. It makes room for grief, for joy, for memory, for magic, and yes, for time. Time that isn't borrowed or bought. Time that doesn't tick like a metronome, but flows like a lullaby. You smile, not because anything funny happened, but because something gentle did. You're not rushing towards sleep now, you're easing into it, letting time cradle you, like a wave, like a whisper, like the soft murmur of stars blinking in no hurry at all. You don't know how long you've been here, and that strangely feels like a gift. There are no numbers ticking by, no reminders of what's next. Just this expanding stillness, like the world pressed pause so you could hear your own breath echo back as music. Time when you're alone like this becomes not a measure, but a mood. You begin to sense things differently, not just more sharply but more honestly. The soft brush of air on your arm, the faint hum of a light bulb across the room, the distant memory of someone humming in another lifetime. None of it asks anything from you, it just arrives, and you let it. Did you know your sense of time changes, depending on how stimulated you are? When your brain has more to process, like in a crowd or a conversation, it compresses time, hours shrink. But when you're alone, everything slows, stretches, breathes. You are right now in the breath between things, and it's beautiful here. A curious theory floats across your thoughts, one whispered about by philosophers and physicists alike, that time might not be linear at all, that it loops or curls or overlaps in ways we don't fully understand. If that's true, then maybe your past and your future are brushing against you right now. Maybe the feeling you can't name is your older self smiling at the younger one, or your younger self whispering, "Hey, remember wonder?" You smile, because you do. Right now, wonder is everywhere. It's in the way your heartbeat softens as the night deepens. It's in the feeling of floating without falling. It's in the way silence isn't empty, but sacred. There's a story about how monks used to track time not with clocks, but with candles, special candles that burned at a predictable rate. As they melted, the monks knew how much of the night had passed, and in a way, That's you now, melting slowly into the moment, letting time pull gently at your feet. Soft, silent, safe. You begin to understand why artists love solitude, why thinkers crave it, why children hide under blankets not to escape, but to create. Because when no one is watching, something inside you opens, quietly, confidently, like a flower blooming in the dark. You're blooming now, and time is the soil, not rushing, just nourishing. Another strange fact surfaces, like a bubble rising in still water. Your brain has a built-in pacemaker for time, the basal ganglia. It's part of what helps you estimate seconds and predict rhythms. But it's also easily swayed. Emotions speed it up. Boredom slows it down. Loneliness stretches it like taffy, which means this feeling you're having and this velvety time drift, and it's real, biologically real, but also beautifully human. Because time is not just a brain function, it's a soul experience. And tonight your soul is wrapped in it like a warm shawl. You hear a sound now, not loud, not startling, just familiar. Maybe it's your house settling, or maybe it's time itself exhaling, as if to say you're doing it right. You're not wasting time by sitting here, you're witnessing it. And that matters, even if no one sees, even if no one claps, because being present is its own kind of applause. You breathe deeply, the kind of breath that fills your chest with the knowledge that you are here, alive, aware, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit transformed. Because solitude didn't shrink you, it reminded you of your rhythm, your pace, your right to slow down. You remember that phrase, killing time? It sounds so harsh now. Why would anyone kill something so kind? Tonight, you've made peace with time, you've sat with it, you've let it tell its story, and in return it has held you gently in its hands. You wonder what you'll remember from this moment in the morning. A feeling, a sentence, a shift? Maybe it doesn't matter, because you're not here to collect, you're here to dissolve, and in dissolving you've found clarity, stillness, softness, something the world rarely gives you, but that was always waiting inside. And now, as this moment stretches just a little longer, you whisper into the silence, I'm still here. Time whispers back, so am I. And neither of you needs to say anything more. You wake, or maybe you never truly slept. It's hard to say, isn't it? Because whatever just happened, it wasn't dreaming in the usual sense. It was more like bathing in a memory you hadn't made yet, a feeling that folded you into itself like soft linen. Time has shifted again. It feels rounder now, less like a line, and more like a circle you've been gently walking, unaware, only to end up right back at the center of yourself. You stretch, not physically, but with thought. Your awareness pushes out into the space around you, testing the edges. They're still there, but they feel kinder now. And the silence? It's still holding you, like a lullaby you've forgotten the words to, but still know how to hum. Another odd little truth bubbles up. Scientists once discovered that even when deprived of all external time cues, no sunlight, no clocks, no conversations, people still generate their own rhythms. One woman stayed in a cave for 30 days. When she emerged, she thought only 2 months had passed. Her brain had made a world of time within itself. And maybe that's what you're doing, too. Creating a new tempo, one not dictated by minutes, but by meaning. You close your eyes again, not because you're tired, but because it feels good to listen more deeply. And that's when you hear it. The soft ticking of something very old. Not a clock, not your heart, but the ancient rhythm of being alive. It's in your breath, in your bones, in the way thoughts rise and fall like soft tides against the shores of your awareness. You wonder if the moon, yes, the moon again, feels time differently too. Its days last over 700 hours, its nights stretch into weeks. Sunrises, there are not bright explosions, but slow births of light over dust and stone. Time on the moon is patient. Maybe that's why it's been such a quiet witness to our lives. It's never been in a rush. It knows we'll catch up eventually. And now, in your stillness, you're starting to believe that time is not a punishment, but a partner. A dance you don't have to lead. You think of monks in the hills of Tibet who meditate for hours, watching candles flicker, listening to their own thoughts until those thoughts dissolve. What are they listening for? Maybe the same thing you are. Not answers, not instructions, but The permission to just be. And in that permission you feel something melt. Maybe it's tension, maybe it's expectation, maybe it's just the last remnants of should sliding off your shoulders. You take another breath. It feels like the first one you've truly noticed in hours. And you wonder, what if this is the secret to why time feels so strange when you're alone? Not because it's broken, but because it's pure, unpolished, uncrowded, untamed. You picture time now like a cat in the sun. Doesn't care if you're paying attention. But when you do, it blinks slowly and settles beside you. No hurry and no purpose, just presence. And in that presence, something clicks. You're not passing time, and you're walking with it. Maybe not at the same speed, but definitely in the same direction. You think again of the woman in the cave, how she emerged, blinking at the light, carrying a calendar in her bones that didn't match the world's. You wonder if you'll walk back into your own world with that same secret clock. One tuned not to schedules, but to self. Not to alarms, but to alignment. And what a lovely thought that is. That time could be yours, not to control, but to companion. You hear a soft wind now, maybe from your window, maybe from memory, and it carries no message, only meaning. It says, you're here, and here is enough. You don't need to catch up, you don't need to get ahead. You don't need to race the sun, because when you're alone like this, truly alone, time opens its arms. And tonight you've finally stepped inside. You're starting to wonder if the ticking of clocks was ever meant to be trusted. Because here in this quiet cocoon, time doesn't tick. It breathes, it glows, it sighs. And the more you sit with it, the more it feels like an animal, some kind of soft-eyed, slow-moving creature that curls beside you when you're finally still enough to notice. This version of time doesn't chase you, it doesn't judge you, it doesn't care about being productive, it only cares that you're present. And right now you are. A strange memory surfaces of being a child lying on the floor watching sunbeams creep across the carpet. How the light moved so slowly it felt like magic. You didn't know the hours were passing, you didn't care, you just watched, and that was enough. Somewhere along the way, the world taught you to stop doing that, to measure time instead of feel it, to spend it like money instead of share it like breath. But tonight, in your solitude, that old magic is returning. You're back on the carpet, in the sunbeam, and the clock has nothing on you. Another soft science fact whispers into your thoughts. Neurologically, our perception of time is tied to novelty. The more new things you experience, the more time feels like it stretches. That's why childhood summers seem to last forever, and why adulthood often feels like a blur. But solitude is novelty's quieter cousin. It invites you to notice what you've always ignored, like the way your fingers twitch just before sleep, or how the silence shifts when the refrigerator turns off, or how your thoughts loop like soft ribbons overlapping in gentle spirals. You're living in the small things now, and the small things are where time hides its deepest treasures. You imagine a watchmaker carefully placing gears smaller than grains of rice into the belly of a golden timepiece, not for speed, but for precision, for beauty. Your solitude is that watchmaker. You two are building something, a new kind of relationship with the moment you're in, a partnership, not just with now, but with yourself. You remember something curious. In some indigenous Australian cultures, time isn't viewed as a straight line, but as a spiral or a web. Past and future overlap. Stories are layered. The ancestors still walk among the living, not as ghosts, but as echoes in the present. You feel those echoes tonight. Not spooky, sacred. You're not alone. Not really. You're just accompanied differently. By time itself, by memory, by potential. There's something else worth noting. When people meditate deeply, especially in sensory isolation, they often report the sensation of time collapse. Seconds become hours, or hours feel like seconds. What matters is not the number, but the feeling. And you feel it now, that delicious unraveling of the schedule, that gentle exhale of everything you didn't do today. You don't need to finish anything right now. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to be, and in being you're becoming. The irony is almost funny. When you stop trying to make the most of your time, that's exactly when it gives you the most. Because time, like trust, doesn't respond well to pressure. It responds to patience. You look around again. Your room hasn't changed, but your perception of it has. The shadows look softer. The corners seem further away. Everything glows with that hush that only solitude can bring. And maybe, just maybe, this is the real point of being alone. Not to escape the world, but to come home to yourself. To stretch out in your own skin. To take up space in your own minutes. To let time become a mirror, not of what you're doing, but of who you are. Right now you are still. Right now you are sacred. Right now time is not passing. It is holding you, and you, in return, are holding it. You begin to notice something strange and beautiful. You're no longer watching time move. You're inside it, like drifting through warm water, eyes open, seeing the soft refracted light bend around every moment. Each second is its own tide, rising, curling, receding. You no longer ask what time it is. The question itself feels foreign, unnecessary. This isn't about keeping time, it's about keeping company with it. You stretch your awareness gently, like testing a hammock sway. There's no resistance, just rhythm. A soft thrum you recognize, not from your mind, but from somewhere deeper. Maybe your breath, maybe your bones, maybe memory. A fact flickers through the haze, one you'd read somewhere. When people are placed in isolation tanks, cut off from sound, light, and clocks, their brains begin creating their own internal timelines. Some report visions, others experience entire dream narratives. One man swore he lived through a week-long vacation in just 2 hours. And what are you living through now? Maybe a lifetime, maybe a single breath. Here, in this suspended hush, the boundary between seconds and centuries thins, and you just float. Thoughts arrive like feathers, soft and curious. You remember the feeling of holding your breath underwater, not in fear, but in play. The gentle pressure, the way sound shifted, how time bent around your body, suspended in liquid patience. That's what this feels like now, a suspended moment, not forever, but enough. And then, gently, a story arrives, ancient maybe, or invented just now by your tired mind. But it doesn't matter. It fits. It's about a clockmaker who was so precise, so in love with his craft, that he built a timepiece not to measure time, but to honour it. He carved tiny constellations into its brass casing, filled it with music instead of ticks. It didn't tell you the time of day, it told you the mood of the hour. One day they asked him why. He said, "Because I don't want to know when I am. I want to know how I am." And tonight, in your solitude, you're beginning to ask the same question. How are you really? Not what you did today, not what you still need to do, but beneath all that, how is your being? There's a small silence before the answer arrives, and then simply, I'm okay. Not ecstatic, not broken, just okay. And in the strange sanctuary of solitude, that okayness feels like grace. You take a breath, not to fill your lungs, but to soften your edges. Time curls around you like steam from a cup of tea. Another odd truth, in dreams, time behaves bizarrely. Studies show REM sleep compresses hours of experience into minutes of brain activity. Whole lifetimes lived between 2 snoozes of an alarm clock, which means maybe you're dreaming now, or maybe you're awake in a deeper way. Is there really a difference? Time doesn't seem to mind, it just continues. No push, no pull, only presence. You feel it wrap around your shoulders like a shawl woven by starlight. You settle into it. The light in the room, however dim, seems gentler now. Even your own body feels more forgiving, less tense, more yours. You understand now what solitude can be. Not loneliness, not silence, but listening, not escape, but arrival. You haven't lost time, you've met it. And in doing so, you've met a part of yourself that's been waiting to be seen, not in the rush, not in the crowd, but in the slow unfolding of now. You close your eyes, not to sleep, not quite, but to feel time from the inside. And what you feel is this: stillness, softness, a quiet knowing that you are not behind, that you are not late, that this moment is not wasted. It is sacred. You find yourself in a room without corners, not literally, of course, your walls still meet. Your furniture hasn't floated away, but something inside has shifted. The angles feel softer now. Time, once a ruler snapping down against your palm, has become a ribbon, folded, fluid, free. You're no longer keeping track, you're keeping company, and that makes all the difference. The air is so still you can hear your thoughts take form. Not with words always, but with textures, with colours, a hum behind your ears like a memory that hasn't happened yet. And then something delicate, a sense. You are not alone in your aloneness. Others have drifted here too, quiet travellers across this gentle landscape of unmarked minutes. Maybe they're lying in their own rooms right now. Maybe they're staring at their ceilings, asking the same soft questions. What is this time? Who am I in it? And why does it feel different when no one else is around? You feel them, faintly. Kindred clocks ticking in the dark, not counting down and not winding up, just being, together in our separateness. It's a strangely comforting thought, that solitude isn't a void and it's a bridge. Time slows to let you meet yourself halfway across it. You remember now a strange experiment done with astronauts aboard the International Space Station. In microgravity, their circadian rhythms became untethered, their sense of time warped. They reported feeling both timeless and more deeply present. Floating above Earth, they stopped measuring days in sunrise and sunset. Instead, they measured them in glances, moments of light, fragments of thought, bursts of awe. And that's what you've created here. Your own little space station of stillness, a pocket of awe inside your orbit of solitude. Time doesn't feel broken anymore. It feels personal. You stretch your thoughts across the hours behind you and realize something almost laughable. You've barely moved. You haven't travelled. You haven't accomplished. And yet, you have arrived. Fully. Here, now, in a space where clocks don't matter, but meaning does. And isn't that what time has been trying to teach you all along? It doesn't want to be managed. It wants to be met. Not like an enemy, but like a friend with a strange sense of humour. The kind who shows up late, but always with a gift. You open that gift now, and it's quiet. And it's whole. And it's you. Time doesn't ask anything of you here. It doesn't tick. It doesn't shout. It just sits beside you, hums low and waits. Not for the next task, not for the end of the day, but for you to exhale. Fully. And you do. Because now, you know, when you're alone, time becomes a mirror. Not to show you what you've done, but to remind you of what you are. And what you are is unfolding, like a story, like a tide, like the shadow of the moon across a sleeping field. You smile, or maybe you dream. Doesn't matter now, because time is no longer passing, time is present, and so are you. And now, as all things do, this quiet journey begins to fade, not end, just soften. The edges blur, like fog rolling gently over morning hills. Thoughts untie themselves. Questions loosen their grip, even your breath, so steady, so sure, feels like it's being carried now, not by lungs, but by something older, kinder. Time no longer counts here, it cradles. This moment isn't asking for anything, not reflection, not meaning, just presence, just your simple, gentle being. You might still be floating in that between space where the mind no longer needs shape and the body forgets its weight. Everything around you, this room, this night, this silence, is part of the same lullaby now. Even the moon, high above and far away, hums in harmony with your heartbeat. You are remembered, not by name, not by story, but by rhythm, like a wave always known by the sea. There is no need to hold on. Everything that matters knows where to find you, and everything that doesn't is already falling away. So let go. Let the tide take the rest. You've travelled far, not in distance, but in depth. And where you've landed is the softest place of all. Here, now, still, safe. Time has curled itself into a nest around your breath. And in that quiet shelter, something sacred stirs. Not loud, not grand, just real. And that, dear dreamer, is enough. Let sleep take you now. The stars are already waiting.